Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. This week I'm covering round 2 of the Trackday Championship. It was at Cadwell Park. First time I've ever been to Cadwell Park. If you've not experienced it and you get the opportunity to, you need to do it. It's like the best of every English B road combined onto a racing circuit. It's awesome. It's extremely narrow, it's very tight in a couple of places, and then there's a corner called the Mountain, which is a blind crest where everything goes very light and gets very exciting. But we had high hopes. We tested the day before and we knew our pace was there or thereabouts. We just needed to get it together in qualifying, get a clean lap, get ourselves nearish the front, just because overtaking is a little bit tricky, and then go from there. Now we did have a small issue in practice, something to do with the throttle position sensor, either the pedal or the engine end, but PRO-AM did a great job, diagnosed it pretty quickly and changed it. Went out for qualifying, we didn't have any of the fault that we had before. We were happy that everything was resolved. We cracked on with qualifying. However, the issue did come back in the race, and it meant that Jack, who was out first of all, dropped right to the back. He really kept his head well, pushed forward, gained a lot of places, managed the issues as best he could, and then handed the car over to me. Ultimately, I ran out of laps to get us back up to where we really should have been, but the car ran well for the remainder of my stint, and it was some great practice getting myself really familiar with the car. Now I'm very confident going into the remaining rounds. A little bit of a missed opportunity for a few people, including ourselves, when it comes to the points. But onwards and upwards, you get a dropped round, and maybe it'd be Cadwell that we use as our drop round, but who knows. But anyway, without further ado, you can join a happy looking Chris post-qualifying, and we'll go from there. Here we are then, at Cadwell Park. Qualifying's over, we qualified P3, which is a great result. Who knows what's going to happen in the race, but it's really positive. If you've never been to Cadwell, it's an awesome track. I'll make sure I show some footage of it, but it's going to be a heck of a race, so I'm really looking forward to it. Here we go then, just about to have race start. Jack's in the car first, it's going to be a good one. Here we go then, watching the lights. Jack's first ever race start. Plenty of wheel spin, as we do suffer sometimes in this car, but generally it's a good start. Just lose a couple of places and gets pushed out by the Fiesta there. First couple of corners clear now, and on the drive up to Park corner, I think it is. But the aim was to have a nice clean first couple of corners, and Jack definitely achieved that. Just now about looking forward to getting tagged back onto the back of that pack, seeing if we can start to make some places. But there's always that slight hesitancy on the first lap as you're not quite sure how the tyres and brakes are going to be temperature wise. For those of you that haven't done a lap at Cadwell before, this is probably the most famous corner coming into the Mountain now. It's a left-right chicane really, but the exit is like no other circuit I've ever been to. And then unfortunately for us, there was an awful lot of cement dust down as a mini race had happened before us, and somebody had dropped coolant round for a good third of the lap. Jack's picked his way through the fog, as it were, and that's the end of lap 1. Nice and clean, time to move forward now. think the BMW directly in front there is actually a B-class car, but the points in this championship are done for overall position, not your finished position in class, so always keen to move forward regardless of the class car in front. We go into the mountain section again. This is where, quite unexpectedly, we have the throttle issue again. Super frustrating for Jack at the time, and he does really well. Thank you to everybody else in the race. Manages to avoid the rear end of the car. So you can see there he cycled the ignition, bump started it, and then unfortunately the same problems come back almost immediately. Cycled the ignition again and we're off, but I think we've dropped either to last or one but last. The downside of having an issue on the opening laps, of course, is that everyone's really bunched up. So there's a test of Jack's mettle now. He's got to try and put the issue behind him, start getting past some D-class cars. We should be quicker than them. We've out-qualified them, we've got more power than them. But it's one thing to catch cars, it's another thing to pass, as everybody knows. One ticked off, as you're about to see. Cadwell is a very narrow track, and it is pretty much one by one in the last third of the lap. See towards the end of the straight there, just where we're in the class above these two cars, where our extra power's coming in. Jack's just looking for an opportunity. Don't want to go for anything silly though and cost ourselves even more time in this race. Another one ticked off, and his eyes forward now for the silver Mazda. Still D-class, still worth it for the points in the championship, but obviously not where we thought we'd be. Great move there, just down the inside, take control of the corner. Now we've got a bit of open road for Jack to try and close up as much gap as possible. What I'll do now is I'll wind things on a little bit while Jack's circulating on his own. We'll come back when there's a bit more action. So here we are then, he's caught back up with the sort of front end of Class D now, and he's had, I think, about 2.5, 3 laps later on, down the inside into turn 1. It's a nice move, and he's gained himself another position. I can just about see the next car just disappearing over the horizon there. Once you start to move through the classes, or should I say further up the overall positions, obviously people's lap times get a bit quicker, so it gets a little bit harder to catch them. A little bit harder to pass them. The importance for us at this stage really was just damage limitation and get ourselves as high up the field as possible. So this is the end of that same lap. Use the remainder of that lap to catch up with these two cars. Now I think these are first and second place in Class D. I could be wrong though. There was a lot going on in this race for me to remember it all. We've got the yellow Golf, which is Class B. I think he was the race leader. Had to make an early pit stop for an issue. Now Jack's firmly got his sights set on these two Class D cars in front to put us at the front of Class D and back at least with our own class cars. Bit of bravery there. That corner does not look as scary as it is in real life, so nice move around the outside there to keep us moving forward. See now into this part under the trees how really single file it is, how difficult it is even if you've got overspeed on the other car to get past. There are the odd opportunities, but usually unfortunately you're better off just waiting until we get to the straight using the power on these slightly lower power cars. So I think with that move, it moves us much closer to the front of Class D. I don't think we're quite at the front, but it's certainly a lot further up the overall standings where we need to be. Jack has a couple of laps on his own now, put some decent lap times in. I'll wind things forward to the driver swap, and we'll focus on my own drive for a few laps. I'm quite fortunate I have a few laps on my own, so I won't bore everybody with laps circulating by myself, but let's wind things on now. So, slightly frustrating start to my stint. Obviously the same issue Jack had earlier on in the race. Didn't seem to present itself exactly the same way as it had done in practice for me, but nevertheless the full ignition recycle as we've been doing seemed to solve the issue. I knew that I needed to make up ground, and so my sole objective really from now on was just get my head down, keep an eye on my lap time delta, just try and put in the fastest consistent laps that I can. always have in the back of your mind when you've had a little sort of unknown fault like that, as whether it's just going to suddenly come back at the point that you need a bit of throttle to keep the car under control. But once you're in the thick of a corner, you soon forget about that. You're too busy focusing on the driving. So there's a lot of pit stops happening around this sort of time, so you can probably hear me just about talking away, and I'm just asking Scott on the pit wall for an update about where we're sat overall and what the gaps are and what I need to do lap time wise to try and close up any gaps in front. I think what I'll do is I'll let this lap roll and then I'll fast forward us to any overtakes or anything like that. But what I will say is, from a personal performance point of view, I was very happy with my drive. There's always bits to improve on, and I'm by no means perfect. But every lap that I had without any traffic or an overtake, I was in the 1:45s, which, looking at the lap times of the class winner in the end, would have put me right on their pace. So I'm very happy with personal performance. Shame about the fault, but sometimes those things just happen. Slightly awkward early shift into the last corner, but we were finding second was just too low a gear on the exit, so it was worth taking the early shift. But anyway, with all that considered, I'll wind things on to some action points. Don't think anyone wants to see me just lapping on my own. So here we are then, we've caught up with the Ginetta in front. Class below, I think this is not for position, I think this is just lapping a car. And as you can see, there's a Clio in front, which I think is a Class B, and I've got another one behind, which I also think is Class B, and lapping us. Could well be for position given pit stops at the time, but I'm pretty sure it was lapping us. I decided I was going to go to the inside pretty much regardless into this corner, but kindly moved out of the way, caught me a little bit off guard, but happy to avoid it and get past. Just a quick lift off on the throttle for me to let that car by. I'm obviously getting blue flags. And then try and hang on to a higher class car through the second half of the lap and just see if it can drag me along a little bit. So we're back to where things start to get really interesting for me in my stint. We're right at the end of the race now, and the two cars in front are for position, and it's just all doing everything I can. I've been asking Scott for the gaps every lap to just try and get us as many overall positions as we can get. I'm not sure if this is for position or lapping, but I'm flashing my lights, and I wanted to keep up with the orange Fiesta, which I knew from Scott was definitely for position. So I've gone down the inside there, and I'm just trying to close up as much as I can now. I knew this was either going to be the last lap or possibly one more afterwards, looking at the clock. As the lap progressed, it became more clear that this was going to be the final lap. And as we've seen, it's really tricky to overtake in the second half of this lap. This is, I think, the leader or very near the front of Class D, and one of the difficulties with the very quick guys in Class D is that their apex speed is not too dissimilar to ours. So it's very hard to get past on the brakes, which is what I was going to have to do if I was going to make this place up. As you can see, I am rapidly running out of time and I'm doing everything I can to get as close as possible through here. Thought about going for a send into the last corner, but there's double wave yellows. I get blocked a bit from my initial line. Miss the gear a little bit, which is what the bang on the steering wheel is for, and I try and get the drag to the line. I just run out of time. That is the end of the race. I really enjoyed those last few laps. In fact, I enjoyed my whole stint trying to hunt down the gaps in front of me as best I could. But a frustrating end to the day. Here we go then. I've just stopped off at the motorway services on my way home. It's like 3.5 hours home for me, so it's nice to have a bit of a break on the way back. Sometimes when opportunities feel like they got away from you, they hurt the most, and I think we just got a little bit unfortunate this weekend. Jack had what we think is a throttle position sensor issue. Many had to cycle the ignition, as you've seen a couple of times. He lost a load of positions. I did my best when I took over to try and get us back up as best we could. I'm quite pleased when I look at my lap times. They seem pretty consistent from what we looked at before I left the circuit, but we were just too far behind in the end to make up enough decent ground. But you live and learn. We've still got a lot to learn with the car, getting used to it, and generally Pro-Am have done a great job prepping the car. Sometimes things just go wrong, that's motorsport. Doesn't stop it being disappointing, but you have to accept that these things happen. Having said that, looking at the positives, Jack and I were up to speed in the car really quickly again. We're both enjoying driving it. It seems to suit our styles. We're helping push each other along. Clearly, Jack's a bit quicker than me in some places, I'm a bit quicker than him places, and the lap time's coming together because of that. But onwards and upwards, it's not long till the next round. I think we've got just under 2 weeks until we are off to Anglesey, another circuit I've never raced at. So I'm looking forward to that. I've only ever heard good things about it. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please do consider hitting that like button, and if you're not already, subscribing to the channel. But other than that, I shall say, thanks very much for watching.